definitely have to talk about that. Welcome to the TFW podcast, episode 20 of That's Freaking Wrestling. I am your host, Matt. Rhodesia and Eshaun are with me as always. What is a good word, folks?
What's going on, family?
Wrestling. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anything new and hot in y'all guys' world since we last talked?
New and hot. Well, let's say it'll come up later on in the show.
Oh, look at that. That's like a cliffhanger, as they say in the movie business, in the TV business. Okay. What about you,
look,
Eshaun?
anybody that knows me knows how much I love me some PC modding. And this WWE 2K23 is shaping up to be a hell of a game. I am so excited for this game. Hey, shouts out to my homeboy, Grits. Hey, I'm sorry, homeboy. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I never did. I've known this guy for like 5 years.
He said, I never did.
I never
That's
know how to
insane.
pronounce his name. It's Grix. He's the modding king right now. He has some great news. It looks like we're going to have a very moddable game this year, so I can add myself and others into this game. It's shaping up to be a good one, y'all.
Okay. Hit us up if you guys are gamers as well. I know Eshaun is way more of a gamer than I am when it comes to 2K. I am also a gamer, but I'm looking forward to it. But if you guys are fans of the 2K series, hit us up. Follow us on Twitter at That's FNW, of course, or you also can leave a message and a 5-star review on the podcast. What I want to start with first, non-wrestling related, Beyoncé, the female GOAT, and I say the female GOAT because Michael Jackson is the GOAT in music, but Beyoncé has released tickets this week on Ticketmaster. I think they're doing like a stagger release. I think they learned from the Taylor Swift debacle that don't put all the tickets on sale at one time. You can crash Ticketmaster. But someone just put up their like transaction receipt from Ticketmaster on Twitter right before we went live. Now it's funny because people complain about the price of dairy. They couldn't afford eggs, but now we can afford Beyonce tickets, which I can understand that because I'm all about spending money on entertainment. I'm all about spending money on entertainment. So these tickets, and this is the price. It is Honey on the Stage. I guess that's like a section of where this show is at. VIP, row C, seat 5. After taxes and fees, $4,318.30.
Whew. Hey, real quick though,
Sheesh.
how much of fees from Ticketmaster is included in that 4,000?
It's not even that much. Hey, the service. Hey, you know what's crazy? Listen to this. The service fee on that is $556.
See, that's the bull crap. The bull crap.
$4,318.30. That is insanity. What is the most that you guys can remember you've paid for either like a sporting event or like a concert, anything like live? What's the most for a ticket you guys have spent?
I think $350 is probably my max, my own personal max. Eshaun?
Okay, $350.
I got to keep it real. I think when I went to Mania one day, I spent close to $500 on the seat, and I thought that was a bit much. So you talking about, is that $2,000? Was that $4,000 for one seat or $2,000?
That's one seat, sir.
Woo!
That is one seat. And I looked at it, I'm like, maybe he's taking the whole fam to go see Beyonce. No, that's one seat. Shout out to Beyonce and shout out to that fan. I'm sure they're going to have a great time. But yeah, I can't spend that much. I think the most I've ever spent was either a Mania, or it could have been Eastern Conference playoffs back in the day for the Pistons.
Oh.
And we had like right at midcourt, like row 4. And I think those were,
I think $750-ish, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there, like $750 a piece. So right around that is probably the highest I've been. But man, $4,000, that is insane. But shout out to them.
Hey, ain't no recession, right?
Man,
We
not
talking
for
$4,000
Queen
for
B, it's not.
tickets.
Not for
No,
Queen B,
sir.
it's not. But you know, it's funny too though. Like somebody like Beyonce, I always talk about how like if you hate on Beyonce, there's certain people. I think just in life, if you hate on like you're the problem, they're not the issue. Beyonce is
Right.
one of those for me.
Yeah.
LeBron James is one of those for me, and of course, shout out LeBron for now being the #1 scorer in NBA history. He surpassed that on Tuesday, so that was fantastic to see. He's won in the wrestling world. Roman Reigns. Hey, I get if you are over the title reign, but like if you don't know and think he's like the #1 star in all of wrestling, it's you. You have the issue. But it's funny because you look at that and just say, man, like that's huge. That is a lot of money. For you two, who would be dead or alive? So it can be somebody who's alive. What's the most you would pay for to see in concert, and who is it?
Well, how much time do I have to save for starters?
You know 3 months in advance.
The most I'll probably spend is $2,000 to see MJ. And if MJ was actually still alive, actually, there probably isn't a max, actually. I'll probably just have to figure it out. Get an
Okay.
OnlyFans page, right? And show my feet.
Yeah, man, I've been telling you, the feet thing is hot out here. I can take the pictures, I promise. Eshaun?
You know, this is a bad topic for me because I'm a very introverted person. Like I wouldn't, I don't like concerts. It's too many people's. So I ain't
Really?
gonna spend no $2,000, no $4,000 just to be around a whole bunch of people like that. To be honest with you, man, that's a little too much.
You've
for me.
never been. You've been to a concert though. Like you've been to concerts, plural, right?
Hey, I remember the last concert I went to. I think I was like 7. I
Oh
went
no
to-
way.
Yeah, and I think it was like Belle-Biv DeVoe.
BBD, was it BBD in Jodeci? Do you remember?
Oh, actually, it was BBD and I think Hammer.
Shout
Wow.
out, man. That's what I'm talking about. And that was a hell of a show too. Do you even remember it?
I don't. I do remember being mad at my brother because I waited all night to see Belle-Biv DeVoe, and as soon as they hit the stage, he was like,
You had
"Yo,
to
we
go.
gotta go." Yeah, I'm like, son of a, like, hey, Marlon, I love you, man, but you was an asshole, bro.
Marlon, you were a heel. Come on, man. You gotta be better than that. He can make it up to you for Beyonce tickets. So hit him up and see how much he's willing to spend for Beyonce when they come. When they come. Yeah, me, it's Mike, of course. And there is probably no price. Well, I mean, it changes now because we know he's gone. He's dead. But I remember when he had that concert in New York, I had a chance to get tickets. And I think those were 1,100, I want to say. And they were like fantastic tickets. And I was like, man, I don't know. Of course, I wish I would have gotten those tickets now. But yeah, there's probably not a price. I'll mortgage the house to go see, to be able to be at a Michael Jackson concert anywhere in the
think
building.
about-
I wouldn't care. Yep. I would not
See,
care.
but that's why
where
those
we were
Beyonce
sitting.
fans, the Beehive, they'll pay that money. Just like
And
how we
then I
feel
can-
about MJ.
And then I can start the OnlyFans. You can, you know what I mean?
And I'll
We
take
can
the
get this
pictures.
thing going. We can get this thing going. All right, let's get to it. Let's talk some freaking wrestling. Let's start off on a very good note. It started out pretty rough, and then it looks like hopefully he's going to make a full recovery. Jerry the King Lawler had they called it a major or massive stroke, I think on Monday, when his neighbors found him face down outside. And
gosh.
yeah, he had paralysis. He couldn't speak. They did surgery. I guess they said he had a blockage in his brain. But according to the Twitter, and he had, I think it may have been his wife, tweeted from his account today saying that he is out the hospital and they think he's going to make a full recovery. So, man, like that is,
Amen.
Lawler is the master of the false finish, right? He probably should have been out of here on that Raw
Yeah.
show when he
Yep.
took those 32 elbow drops, kicked out here again. So it is something about him and Flair, old school wrestlers that can kick at 2.5. So shout out to them, and hopefully well wishes that he will be good to go. But I am happy to be able to kind of talk about that. I thought it may have been the other way, unfortunately, when we first saw that on Monday. Some other fantastic news. And what up, though, to all of our Detroit fam that tunes in to the TFW podcast. SummerSlam is back in Detroit for the first time since 1993 when it was at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Yokozuna and Lex Luger was on top for that show. That was when we had the DQ finish. And this is also the first wrestling show at Ford Field since WrestleMania 23 in 2007. That was Cena and Shawn Michaels on top. So this is fantastic news. It was super cool just to see everybody on Twitter earlier this week talking about them going to Detroit. A lot of them have never been in Detroit, or they hadn't been in Detroit in a long, long time. And just to kind of see that excitement around, hey, we're going to be in Detroit for SummerSlam is really, really cool. Of course, we will be in Detroit. You guys know that is all three of us, our hometown. We don't live there now, but it is always home. We will be there. I am super, super ecstatic to be able to kind of spend the whole weekend. I'm sure we're going to get the big thing with SmackDown on Friday, get SummerSlam on Saturday, and hopefully maybe they stay in town for Raw on that Monday and they don't, either hit Ohio or maybe even Chicago. Who knows what their travel is going to look like. But how excited are you guys for SummerSlam in the D this year?
Man, I'm so excited. So excited. When you first sent that to me, that it was announced, I think you even told me a few months ago that it was rumored. And so, of course, then I was super excited. Maybe not as much this week when you finally sent me that tweet. But, man, so cool. Because, again, Detroit is such a huge wrestling town. And so we should have those big main events. So I'm really happy and really excited about that.
Yeah, if my excitement level can be on level 1 to 10, I'll be on a 30. Because number one, I get to go home. So anytime I get to go home, that's always a plus for me, right? Shouts out to my homeboys, Donnell, Chris, Fonz. Your boy be seeing you in August, and I get to see some good old wrestling too. SummerSlam. This is gonna be huge, man. Look, I'm really excited. I think I'm trying to get my dad to come this year because he watched the Rumble. And he doesn't watch wrestling. I've never seen him watch wrestling. So shout out to my dad. He listens to the podcast. He watched YouTube videos. He actually watched Royal Rumble and enjoyed it the other day. So maybe I can get him to come SummerSlam with us. So I'm looking for a huge event.
That is awesome. Yep. So we had that in August, which is cool. And tickets go on sale in April, I believe, for that one. So that is August. We are in February. We didn't do anything last week, but we got 3 weeks left in February, which is Black History Month. So let's go ahead and kind of get into it and celebrate Black History Month in a TFW style. Eshaun, we'll start with you, and then we'll kind of, Rhodesia, you or I can go next week, and then whoever on the last week of the month. We were kind of talking earlier and just thinking about, there's been a lot of Black History awesome moments in wrestling. Eshaun, of course, you've been watching. I think, we talked about it before. You're pretty much a lifelong fan, so you've seen a lot of them, around this generation. What comes to mind when you kind of think about, Black history or, Black wrestlers and things that really stick out in your mind surrounding some of the success that some of our Black wrestlers have had?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like we definitely need to talk about this on the podcast. And one of the biggest moments that came to my mind was Ron Simmons winning the WCW Heavyweight Championship. This was August 2nd, 1992. And to be honest with you, I was really young when this happened, and I didn't really understand the magnitude of how important this was. I just remember seeing this Black man winning this championship, everyone rushing down to the ring to lift him into the air. Like everybody came out. It was Dusty, I think Luger, Sting, and everybody was just super excited. The crowd was going crazy. And for me, I don't think in that moment I understood how big and how huge that was, that this was like the first Black champion in a national history, I believe. Maybe number one and number two. And thinking about it now as a older man, like, that empowered me in that moment. I didn't really understand in the moment because as a child, we think the sky's the limit, right? We feel like we can do whatever. And as you get older, we start thinking we have a ceiling, we have a cap, right? But in that moment, I knew my ceiling was no limit. I had no cap because I can ascend and win and do anything I wanted to do. I can get to the highest mountaintop. And it didn't matter what I look like. It didn't matter what I sound like. I can achieve it if I believed it. And to think about him now as an older person and like, yo, this dude was the first champion, and how he empowered me in that moment to reach and go after my dreams. It was a real moment, and it was definitely a great Black History moment that I want to celebrate in February.
That's a great one. I wasn't watching WCW back then.
Shame.
I was a huge WWF guy. I don't think I saw that in real time. Of course, I've seen clips over the decades. But I don't think, I mean, at that time, who was on top in WCW? Was it Flair and Sting?
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah, it was Flair and Sting. I don't know if Flair was there. I know around this time period we had kind of a falling out match. He might went to WWF at the time, but yeah, Dusty was still there. I think he still was booking. Luger definitely was ascending. Sting was there. Those are like the big shots I remember. I remember the Horsemen still were. Yeah, Flair would have had to been there.
Okay.
But I remember Vader was coming up around that time period too. I can't remember who he actually defeated. I know that I think Vader beat him for the title. But yeah, it was WCW in the 90s was great wrestling. I would say it's probably the equivalent to kind of, AEW. It was work.
Mhm.
It was workman. It was a work-like promotion, right? It was the best wrestlers worked there.
Well, I remember the first time I turned to it, it was Channel 7 back in the day. It was on Saturday afternoon. Superstars used to come on like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. back in the day on Saturdays. And then I found it just flipping through the channels, and it was in the afternoon. It was like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and it was Cactus Jack and I want to say Vader. And they were fighting through the crowd, and I thought it was real. Like, even back then, of course, I knew there was some type of workmanship with wrestling. I didn't know, nobody knew the inner workings like we do now. But it was something that when I was watching, I was like, man, this is like real wrestling. It's the same feeling I had when I watched ECW, and I found it at 3 o'clock in the morning on TV, a Saturday night, random Saturday night. And I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this is like the real wrestling. And that was what I called it when I first saw it. I was like, oh, that's the real wrestling, just because of like how intense it was. But shout out to Ron Simmons. Shout out to that moment. That is really, really cool. So like I said, we'll give ours in a couple weeks. But Rhodesia, anything that you want to speak on surrounding this topic before we move on to just how we do not deserve Paul Heyman and his genius?
We can move on to Paul in just a second. When you mentioned about when you first started watching WCW. So get this. The first time I watched WCW was when Shane was on the screen saying that he bought WCW. That was my first time.
Wow. And that wasn't even real WCW.
That wasn't even real WCW, just like ECW. I didn't actually get into it to after WWE or F at that time bought ECW.
Mm-hmm.
So I never even had the opportunity to watch ECW then. I also didn't have cable back in the day either. So.
Well,
hey, but you know what, Brody?
Yeah.
You can.
No,
I
go ahead.
don't blame you for ECW. That was so hard to catch back in the day. Like Matt said, you had to. It was on at random times of the day, like especially when it was hot. It was hard to find. It got on TNT at some point, but it kind of wasn't the hot ECW that people talk about at that point.
Well, that and then too, that kind of speaks to just I think how still under the radar AEW is right now. I mean, think about that. You have a wrestling podcast now, of course, in your adulthood, but you're somebody that only knew about WWF back in the day. You didn't know about WCW, that you didn't watch ECW. I think that's a lot of kind of what we're seeing with AEW still, even 4 years in. I think there are a ton of wrestling fans that have no idea that there is an alternative out there called AEW that's on like TNT and TBS weekly. So that's really interesting. But yeah, let's get to WWE and just the genius of Paul Heyman. We talked about it last week. I put a poll out on Twitter and said, hey, do you think you're going to be as emotionally invested in Cody and Roman come WrestleMania time as you are right now in this moment in Sami and Roman? And it was about 53% yes, 47% no. So yes was still there. I am sure if we were to rerun that poll after Raw, it would probably be about 90% yes, 10% no, maybe. That was wow. With one promo, they sold the WrestleMania main event. I mean, think about that. Granted, we got 8 weeks left. I even said that like midway through that promo, I'm like, damn, they may be going a little too good too soon. We've seen that sometimes too, where it hits really hard and then all of a sudden like it sputters after that. I don't think that's going to happen here. Word is the only reason for that segment was because they knew how hot Roman and Sami was, and they wanted to make sure that that feud in that program didn't overshadow the WrestleMania main event.
That's
so my assumption is, of course, Heyman and Cody came up with that brilliant promo. That was another one of those, just like the the judge of Sami Zayn a few weeks ago, where you're watching and you lose track of time. I don't even know how long that segment was.
I don't either.
And I don't care. And I don't think anybody in the crowd cared either. You could hear a pin drop in that arena, and that was just that was fantastic to see Paul cry.
Right. I mean,
right, and talk about. Man, you got me there. Wow. Yeah, you got me there. And then just to heal Cody at the end, you dirty son of a bitch, man. You dirty son of a bitch. And that sold it, right? That completely sold it. That made Cody look like an even bigger star than he already is at the end of it. And that's what those segments should do. It should put the heat on whatever program we got. Everybody should look better coming out of it. And boy, oh boy, do they create magic in that ring. Now, I'm even more interested to see the first interaction with Roman and Cody. And do we just stick to this whole he wanted me more than he wanted you and tell that story, or do we kind of pivot to something else? What was your guys' thoughts on just what we saw Monday night in that segment?
Again, a masterpiece. I was hanging on to every single word I always hang on to every single word of Paul Heyman, but also with Cody. And of course, Cody's not my favorite. We know on this show, Eshaun is the biggest Cody fan. But man, did that bring me in into, wanting to see this match at WrestleMania. Still don't want him to win the championship, but it got me so excited. And then on every single word of Paulie, when he was like, "Oh, you got me there," and just the me feeling it like this is a little sneasel or weasel snake, and like you said, he healed him at the end. Perfection, absolutely perfection. I don't know, like you mentioned, maybe too hot too soon. I don't know how they can follow this, to be honest with you. It was beautiful, and it just tells that story again for Cody that they were poor, but this is what they did, and there's honor among your word and things like that, and this brotherhood of wrestling, just all of it, all the emotions. I'm gonna let Eshaun talk now, but it was just so full of emotion that you felt it on both sides. Masterpiece.
You want me just to skip past you, sir, so you can just sit there and smile at the camera? This is also an audio podcast. Everybody is not watching the YouTube. Hey, we are on YouTube. Guys, if you haven't checked us out last week, the full episodes are now on YouTube each and every week. So my assumption is Eshaun doesn't want to speak. He wants you guys just to see his face.
Hey, nice way of getting people over to YouTube. But he got the Kool-Aid smile. I'll tell you that now.
That's freaking wrestling.
What I'm doing right now, guys, I'm breathing all this in. I'm taking everything in here. Cody, we did it. We took another Cody hater.
Never was a hater.
And turned him into another. No. Not
I was going to say, that's a lie. I think Rhodesia's met Cody more than you have. You can't say Rhodesia's a Cody hater.
What I say another. I say haters. I'm talking about MATT. Because you've been saying for weeks it couldn't be done. They did it.
No, I never said that. And I still want Cody losing in Mania. I still would be inside a SoFi Stadium screaming and hollering from the rooftops. Well, we have good seats, so it won't be the rooftops. But screaming and hollering at that ring for Roman Reigns, my tribal chief, to defeat Cody Rhodes and have him go on the journey that I want to see. And don't let him win. Do not let Roman win that. We're going to do somehow I'm going to make sure we do a post pod that night.
Wait, correction.
Just so we can see.
You said don't let Roman win. You mean don't let Cody win?
No, I'm saying don't let Roman win. You won't hear the end of it from me. I may just stop watching wrestling. I may not even watch wrestling. I may quit the podcast.
Drop the mic.
I may stop. I may just be done with it. You guys got to carry on the torch. If that man beats Cody clean in the middle, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Hey, there's a mantra that Cody and I use. It's called "We got to do the work." So we seem like we got a little more work to do. Matt still ain't a full believer. He done saw one of the greatest masterpieces and promos in history on Raw, and he still ain't quite there though. But we winning them over, and this is what I needed. This is what I wanted. I knew it was gonna happen. Look, there's too much story. There's too much character in this thing. Like, Cody's a star.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that.
Right?
There's no doubt.
He's a star. And we talked about it. Well, we talked about our traits of who we thought was like a prototypical superstar, and one of them was the it factor. And Cody has it when he's on that camera, he's in that ring, he oozes the it factor. He sounds so genuine. He has a story that's really compelling, right? And I hope that he can, win his dream, because that's I talked about earlier, being a kid at home and seeing Ron Simmons let me know that I had no ceiling and that I can achieve my dreams. So who am I to sit here and root against another man trying to strive for his dreams, right? Trying to get to that mountaintop, trying to realize what he always wanted, was to be world champion. How can I sit here and not appreciate that journey? Because I'm still on that journey. I'm still not where I want to be in life. But look, there's no ceiling. And I look up, I see no cap. Cody, we see no cap.
Preacher E.
And we gonna realize at WrestleMania that ceiling is non-existent. And we are going to win that championship for our daddies, for Dusty, for Elvin. We are going to do this. And we are going to put Matt to shame. I want on this podcast, we're going to do a emergency podcast. I don't care if it's like they're going to be actually in the building. I want him to do it in the parking lot. And I want him to tell the world that Cody, Eshaun, I was wrong. You was right. Thank you for providing me. I want this to be his TFW moment of the year. Of life. Oh my God, Rhodesia, talk to me now. I can't wait. This is a great moment. It's a great show. Let's keep going.
Cody did in racism when he was in AEW.
I was going to say he did.
No doubt.
It is Black History Month.
No doubt.
Shout out to Cody for that.
Shout out to Cody.
So say you cannot pick Heyman, right? You cannot pick Heyman at all in the question I'm about to ask you. You have to pick, it could be a wrestler or it could be a wrestling personality. You have to pick one person to sell a match for you. Who are you picking? It could be past or present.
And this is either company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just in wrestling in general. Can't pick Heyman because we know that he can sell water to a well, but you got to pick somebody from the wrestling world to sell a match. Who are you taking?
This may not be the best person, but it was the first person that came to mind. So to me, it has to be, I guess. She was so, I would say, underutilized, but that's not true. I think maybe underappreciated, but Zelina Vega, I think, especially in the NXT run when she had Andrade with her, my goodness, I loved her being a manager. So I'm going to say Zelina because that's the first thing that popped in my head. I'm quite sure there's other ones out there, but I like Zelina.
Yeah, that's a good thought because Selena definitely is an underrated talker. She really, really sold a lot of matches for Andrade. They was such a great pair, man. They broke up prematurely. But that's a good pick. And that's a good question, Matt. Gosh, I want to say Stone Cold or Rock. If we're going any time period in the past, maybe even Stone Cold because he spoke with such conviction. That and he just sold you into a pay-per-view. And this is back in the day, of course, like AEW, you have to pay $50 to see a pay-per-view. This is back in the day where pay-per-views are like $60 or whatever you was paying back in the day. And like you wanted to go see those pay-per-views. You wanted to spend your money to see him overcome or beat whoever he's going to beat. So I might say Stone Cold, and of course, maybe a good runner-up might be John Cena. He can do that as well.
Yeah, Cena was my number one, probably. Me putting more caveats on the question. If it was, hey, you got a go-home pay-per-view, this is the final week, who would it be? It probably would be Austin for me. He had those down pat and selling out with that. But yeah, for me, it's Cena. Cena, we kind of forget just a little bit because, as we always do, if you're off our TV, kind of out of our mind. But he was the top guy for like 10 plus years. It was like on him to sell all these shows. Yep. So... yeah. So then, lastly, around like the Cody and Roman and all that kind of stuff for now, Elimination Chamber is next Saturday. So we only got a week, which I think is going to really, I think that's really going to help WWE because it was a quick turnaround. Do you think there's anything, do you think they're even going to try? So we have SmackDown, of course, tomorrow or today, if you listen to it on Friday, and then we have it go home next week. Do you think there's anything WWE can do to make it feel like Sami has a shot of beating Roman in Canada?
I think it just being in Canada. I think that alone, with all that energy there in KO and being in his hometown as well, I think just from that alone, there is some inkling of a chance. I don't think there's a chance at all, but because he is at home, he's going to feed off of that energy. And he's been pretty aggressive. I think what he had a hoodie on and jumped in the ring this last week.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of a little bit not out of character, but showed more of aggressive side of him. So yeah.
Yeah, like I'm a huge Sami fan, and like I said, I wasn't really until this Bloodline feud or storyline that he had. But I'm a huge fan of his now. He's definitely his star level is definitely up for me, but I just don't see him as a champion. I think there was a report, and I'm not sure if it was a real report or not, because people say all kinds of things online. But the WWE management didn't see Sami Zayn as a main eventer. And honestly, that's how I feel too. I just don't think that Sami is a main eventer in the way he's portrayed. You think he's an underdog type wrestler that maybe Bryan Danielson was, but Daniel Bryan and Bryan Danielson had something about it that made you believe that he can overcome odds and win championships that Sami doesn't. I haven't seen it from him yet. But definitely as an underdog and somebody that you're rooting for, I mean, why not? Right? I mean, if he would have won, it'd be kind of one of those slip on a banana peel type of a deals. But is there a shot? Sure. But what does it look like for Mania? Right? I mean, do we see a 3-way? What's going on with that?
Yeah, and that's why I don't think there's a shot. Like, we all knew KO didn't have a shot, but if you wanted to work yourself into a shoot, you could say, okay, this wouldn't happen. But, okay, maybe KO wins, and then there's a rematch at Elimination Chamber in KO's hometown. Roman gets it back. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of can work yourself into that. But we know, no, the money is in keeping Roman the champ as long as possible to make, when he does lose, even bigger. But knowing the story trajectory of where we're at with now Roman and Cody after Monday's Raw, and then kind of where they are with Sami, there's not a shot. I think the environment, I think the match is going to be incredible. I think all that's going to look fantastic, but we just know he's not going to win. And I don't think that report is accurate. He's main event Elimination Chamber, right? That's a main event spot. So, and I also don't think we would hear Triple H saying that, hey, Sami's not a top guy, when Sami's been in like every main event segment with the Bloodline for like the last 4 months. So
what
I don't
will
put too
say,
much stock in that.
With that interview that Sami did with Ariel Helwani, if I said his last name right, he kind of made a mention to that as far as being maybe not main event, but he doesn't see himself being the face of WWE. We know what that entails and what's required to be the face of the company. I mean, he even mentioned that. So I wonder maybe if some of that came off of just that interview that he did.
I think it should turn into a storyline.
I mean, it certainly could, but we've seen in the past that based on storyline and fan reaction, that storylines for many could change, right? Because Daniel Bryan, at the time, he wasn't slotted to be in the main event matches, I think twice on at Mania, right? Because and fan reaction, got him in that storyline. I want to say maybe even happened with Kofi, right? I don't know. Kofi Mania was something that happened organically that got us there. So I mean, it's a lot of time between now and then. Who knows what's for Mania, but it's definitely interesting because I like that scenario because like I don't like movies, TV shows where I know the ending. I know exactly where we're going. I like to have a little bit of surprise, a lot of intrigue. So keep me guessing, like But
what's interesting with that though? So like let's kind of talk about that really quick. I'm the same way. Like, I can't watch a taped wrestling show if I know who's going to win. Same thing with sports. Like, I've never been that person where, hey, I'm a diehard football fan, but if the game is taped and I know already who won, like, there's nothing to it. Okay, but we know every inner working and plans of comebacks and all that behind the curtain for wrestling. Like, that's a slippery slope. Like, how do you weigh that? So, like, for you, like, legit question for you, E, you don't like to... You want to be surprised at times with storylines, but you find out who signed the contract. You find out who's debuting because you know about the inner workings. Like, do you kind of try to cut it off at a certain point, or do you just say like, "Hey, that's the backstage, and I'm gonna try not to find out, but if I find out, it is what it is."
That's mainly what it is. But I try to engulf myself in the storyline, right? Like it's their job to sell me on the story to make it seem that whoever the favorite or unfavorite is has a shot, right? Like the Logan Paul and Roman Reigns match, right? So we know we need to get to Mania with Roman against somebody, right? We're hoping it was Rock at the time, right? But based on the storyline, that match, there was a slim chance that Logan Paul, we thought maybe could win that match, right? That's great storytelling to me. I love when they take you on a journey to kind of give you that impression that something may happen. Unlike like the trials of Jericho type stuff that we're seeing on AEW, to where we know that there's no way that Daniel Bryan and Bryan Danielson is losing any of these matches. Hey, you know, the funny thing is these fart sounds are so horrible for me because like I'm a big kid. Like fart noises make me laugh, and I can't keep a straight face when I hear them.
My bad. All right, I won't hit it next time you're talking, man. No, yeah, yeah. Okay, got that. I got one more thing for Raw, and then I'll throw it to you guys if you guys got anything. I did overall think the show was great. I think it was 2 weeks in a row. The show was super strong. So shout out to Triple H and his team, and of course, and the wrestlers for making that show really, really good. We are done with JBL and Corbin.
Yes.
Hit the round of applause for that. It was an absolute and complete utter waste for 4 months.
It's been that
both
long?
of them. It's been 4 months. It was October 17th was when, that was when he showed up to help Corbin. And at first I was like, okay, cool, because I am a huge Corbin fan. I'm like, all right, this will get him some more heel heat, even though he can talk for himself. I'm like, well, if you're bringing JBL back, there's got to be an end goal. Word came out this week that JBL is done on WWE TV. So that was the end of it. But it did nothing for Corbin at all. Actually thought it made Corbin look even worse. So I don't know if they go to bum-ass Corbin. I don't know if they go to the Lone Wolf Baron Corbin. But whatever they try to do, it did not work. So shout out to them for cutting off the head now. And then hopefully he gets a nice program heading into Mania so he gets something meaningful. But, man, like that was the shits. That entire time was horrendous.
It was like the sound effect, huh?
Oh, I'll hit it again for you if you want me. No, you know what? It was more like whenever they were on the TV. It was definitely that. So shout out to that.
Their first, was it backstage when they were doing poker? The very first time, I actually, I'm sorry, I really did like it. I guess I can't even tell a lie. The universe is like choke right now.
Sure did. It was like, shut up, shut up and choke. Wow.
The first time, though, I did like it because it gave me that APA kind of nostalgia. But then they just took it and ran with it. And like you said, it was just cricket. So I'm happy that they're broken up, and hopefully Corbin can, he's a great talent. So, and I like him on the mic too. So hopefully we can see something new and fresh from him, or just something new from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely was an odd couple type pairing because I was a big JBL fan when he became a JBL initially. He was great. I thought he was a great heel character. And then, I think, Baron is very, very talented as a character. He's very underrated in the ring. But just from the onslaught, I didn't like the pairing because they didn't seem like they complement each other very well. Also from a look standpoint, I just didn't think that whatever Baron Corbin is going for as far as his overall look, it didn't look top notch to me. Just everything from the presentation to the pairing. It just didn't work. I don't know where this goes. I mean, JBL chewed him out on TV, and it makes you kind of want to be sympathetic towards Corbin. I'm not sure if we're getting a babyface run, which he's never had since that I'm aware of.
No, I don't think he's ever been in a face. Yeah. Yep. So we'll see. What was some highlights from Raw or even SmackDown if you guys have some from last Friday that you guys want to get into?
I'm actually ready to move on to NXT. Or are we not doing that?
Oh, yeah. We got some. Well, you got anything, E, before we move on from WWE?
I just want to agree with you, Matt. This is another great show, man. Like, these shows really fly by. I had to do a two-parter, man, because your boy, I can't, like, these 3-hour nights now, I start watching these things at like 9 o'clock EST. So by midnight, your boy is almost tapped out. But these shows are really, really good from start to finish. I haven't felt this good about watching a Raw in a really, really long time. So I'm just excited for the future. It's Mania seasons in full effect. But yeah, NXT, it's starting to hit a stride right now, right?
It is. I kind of thought they restored the feeling last Saturday. Watching Dijak and Wesley,
Yes.
If you watch the old Black and Gold, you had to think about Takeover and what those shows and those opening matches were. Typically, it was a tag match, but you had like Undisputed Era against Alpha Academy. I mean, they had like some heavy hitters back in the day. And just watching that, I was like, man, this is what. All right, I can get on board with this. I can do this. From the production was fantastic. The stage looked great. The crowd was into it. And shout out to, I think they were in North Carolina. That crowd was there all night. They were there for every single match. So you got to give kudos to them. The matches I thought were really good overall. But I think the match for me probably of the night was Dijak and Wesley. Like I said, that it was Takeover-esque for me. But I really enjoyed the show. I didn't know if I would fully enjoy it. My biggest thing I was excited about was just to see, you guys know I'm big in like production and things of that nature. I'm like, I want to see how they look outside of Full Sail and in front of actual legit true paying customers. And Charlotte Flair's promo package I thought was fantastic. They did an awesome job with that. Then they cut into the arena. I was already hooked. And every match I felt like really delivered except for one.
But back to production. Back to production. I want to hear what you got to say about that in a second. But back to production. If on paper someone told me that Charlotte Flair would be introducing the talent, and for those who haven't seen it, it was like a kind of like a side by side, but also like a reenactment of it, but them also coming out. Like if someone told me on paper this is what we will be seeing as the intro into NXT Vengeance, I would say that is trash. Like you say, capital T, capital RAS, but it was done so good. So I just have to toot their horn for that, because I didn't think that anything like that could be possible, again, because I don't even know how they conceptually thought of that, but that was wonderful. And again, overall, the Vengeance and then watching NXT this last Wednesday kind of got me hooked too. I know it's a lot of wrestling that we watch in 1 week, but I was excited.
You watch NXT on Wednesday? What channel does that come on?
It comes before Dynamite.
Is that like Tough Enough Fridays back in the day?
Yeah, Sunday Night Heat. On Tuesday, sorry. But on Tuesdays, yeah. But no, I'm like, okay, I can probably do this. This is actually kind of cool. I'm liking it. And we'll talk about the
and
big
I put up
thing.
a poll. I put up a poll on Twitter on Tuesday, maybe, and I said, for people who did not or do not typically watch NXT on a regular basis, I want to just them to respond. And the question was the premium live event good enough to now keep up with NXT on a weekly basis? And 73% said yes.
Wow.
So yeah, it worked. I mean, ratings wise, I think ratings are down across the board this week. I think Raw was down. I know AEW was down this week, and NXT was down also. So they went from 587,000 viewers to I think like 562. Okay. So kind of still in the same area, but they did drop, almost 30,000 viewers from right after, the fallout for the PLE. So that's kind of interesting. But I did think Tuesday was pretty good. But yeah, I watched it. I was like, all right, I'm kind of on board. I'm kind of, even sent me a text a couple days ago, like, hey, like, are you on board now? I'm like, well, I'm on board for Mania season. Let's see, or Stand and Deliver, because that's their Mania show. I'm like, hey, I'll make sure that I'm kind of enthralled in it, on Tuesdays, and we'll kind of see what it play, how it plays out. But no, I really enjoyed this show this past Tuesday too. And it was funny because I kept thinking about you watching it. I'm like, man, these promos aren't that bad. I get the delivery part you're talking about. With some of them, it can feel a little like, that's a little rough. But like overall, I really like the style and the format of that show, man. I really do.
Yeah, like one thing I like for me, promo aside, like the work of the guys and gals has definitely improved from the first launch to where we are now, because it's a lot of the same talent from those starting days, and like they've really come along. You really see the progression in their ring work. It's really phenomenal to see. I had the same feeling as far as like the matches, because like they've been kind of getting there for quite some time as far as their in the ring work. The promos, I mean, they're working on it. They're getting better, and you see the progression being made week to week. So Sean's doing a great job down there in NXT. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying it.
What were your guys' match of the night for the pay-per-view?
You already mentioned it though, Wesley and Dijak. I've always been a Dijak fan, so I love seeing him, and then just how the chemistry between the two of them. You wouldn't have expected Dijak being that larger of a size of a man compared to Wesley, but the match just flowed so beautifully. And then this is my first time really getting to know Wesley, and they even did a pretty awesome video package for him too. Yeah, he wrestles with some passion. And again, you feel that it's authentic and it comes through across the screen. And like you mentioned, this is the first time for some of them that they've actually wrestled in front of a lot of people that is outside the Full Sail University. I think that's what it's called. And so that usually adds a certain level of maybe nerves and how can they, step up into that moment. And I was really impressed by Wesley and Dijak. So that is my match of the night.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. That was probably one of the better matches. I thought my match tonight would be Apollo and Mello, but I did like Dijak and Wesley. And going back to Wesley, like when he was with I want to say the Rascals. That was their Impact name. What was their name as a tag team?
No, it was the Rascals, right? Because they were. You're talking about him and it was
and Nash Carter. Their names, it's escaping me.
Wow, I cannot believe I forgot their names. I'm gonna look
it up.
I was going to say High Voltage.
It just escaped me.
Who is High Voltage?
I thought he was going to get lost in the shuffle when his tag team partner got released. But to see him as the champion and, in ring, he's looking great like as a singles wrestler. I want to see him keep progressing on the microphone. He's getting better every week. He's becoming, he sounds more and more natural. He's becoming more and more articulate. And I think that's the next thing I want to see him get better is just continue to get better on the mic because, once he gets to the main roster, he has athleticism. He can wrestle right now. If he can, give us a character that we can believe in, man, sky's limits for that guy.
The name is 3 initials.
Yeah, like I didn't even remember that was the same guy.
Yep.
And Zachary Wentz being his tag team partner. Wow.
Do you remember now that I told you it was 3 initials?
Nope. Yeah.
MSK.
Yep.
MSK. That's
right.
Yep. We never knew what that even meant.
But now I got to look at who was High Voltage. Why did I think High Voltage?
High Voltage, bro. That's from the 90s, fam.
Man, like.
That was Kenny Chaos and Was
that in WWE?
Nah, that was WCW. They were like a jobber team.
High Voltage. High Voltage was a tag team in World Championship Wrestling between 96 and 98. The team consisted of Robbie Rage and Kenny Chaos. That is insane. Why am I thinking about High Voltage? What the hell is that?
How do I still remember this stuff?
Wow. But we couldn't remember MSK. Like,
right.
Of course. It was something else. Oh, and I say it every chance I get. Roxanne Perez, she is the future of the women's division. Every single time, I'm just like so impressed with her, and for her only being 21, it's like, wow, you are.
That was my second
awesome.
favorite match of the night.
Yep. All right.
I know you
said it after the show. Maybe about time.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, you better say something bad.
Maybe time.
Oh wait, before you go to the bad, can we talk about something good still on NXT?
Hey, absolutely. Talk about it, whatever you want to talk about. Okay. I'll be here all night.
So on Wednesday night NXT, when we had the stomp out by JCJ Jane onto Gigi.
You talk about a little stiff. That was a lot stiff.
I'd have got up and hit her for real. Like, sorry, that was too much.
Woo.
Man, so I was trying to watch that last night, and I still fell asleep. I still can't. I saw the highlight. I saw what happened, but I was trying to see the whole segment. I missed it.
I would have hit her with a bat if she kicked me that hard. I would have got right back up in.
Those boots is thick too. I'm like,
boy,
right?
The boot is thick and that door is thick too. Her head had nowhere to go. I'm like, oh my god.
She instantly took it too. Instantly bruised up.
Yep.
Yeah,
all right, now you can go.
Hey, no, real quick, we'll put it on the side. So, hey, Matt, so you also really enjoyed Chase U, right?
Yeah, so of course I've seen their work. previously, just here or there, like turning into NXT, and I thought it was cool. But man, to see that entire crowd do his chant, I was floored. And I asked, like, legit, hey, is this normal? And everybody responded to me on Twitter like, yep, they're my favorite act. Man, they are awesome and they're incredible. So shout out to them for being able to get that type of response and reaction outside of the PC. I went old school and said Full Sail PC on Saturday. But man, yeah, that was like, whoa, I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, because I haven't mentioned them, but they are one of the few acts I thought from a character standpoint and from a promo, they're like ahead to me. Like Andre Chase, like he comes off very believable in his role. The girl, I can't think of her name actually. She plays her role really good. The guy Duke is a replacement for his other guy. I think his name was Brody. He got released. But like the whole dynamic is they're very engaging as a unit. As far as a team that can maybe go up to that's main roster ready right now from a character standpoint, I would say is them. But something about them this screams jobber to me. I think it's Chase, Andre with the whole outfit and Duke with the sweater vest. It looks like Mean Street Posse for me. But I do like them, but I don't know why I like them, so I haven't mentioned them. But from a character standpoint, I think they're leaps and bounds ahead of most of the roster.
And it's so cool too, man. Like, so Andre Chase, I remember him on the Indies. I remember going to see Evolve shows and watching him and thinking to myself, like, he's really, really good, but he's never probably going to be, at this time, there was no AEW. It was either like WWE or that was it. Yeah, Impact's always been there, but we know they're a distant, now 3. They were a distant 2 back in the day. And I just remember watching his work and like, man, he's really good, but his look, there's no way he's going to get a look in WWE. So I am super happy and proud of him to be able to kind of do what he's doing right now with that look. Even on the Indies, he kind of had the professor type, came in with the khakis and, button up shirt, kind of doing that whole thing. So to see him now turn that into something that is over like Rover in NXT, like that is super, super cool.
For sure. So what's the bad news here?
So we get to the main event on NXT, and I'm like, all right, I was not impressed, Bron, with you and Apollo. Last Premium Live event. Let's see what you can do in the steel cage. And I know steel cage matches, of course, can be restrictive because you're working with the cage. I think that was the worst match of the night.
Oh, my God. I mean, but to be fair, it was other good matches. But I get your point.
Your main event.
Sentiment. I get your sentiment. Yes,
with the
sure.
NXT champion cannot be the worst match of the night. And I didn't think the match was horrendous, but I didn't think there was any type of thought that he was going to lose it. For me, it was no false finishes or anything like that. And when he was on offense, it felt like it was just there. And I'm watching, and I'm probably going to go back and watch that match, but I can't put my finger on it. He's missing something. And I feel like he's missing something that's pretty significant. It's not the it factor. You can see him and you know who he is. I don't know, but I'm not. I said, we talked about this a couple months ago, probably a few months ago now. And I said, Bron Breakker is probably the next guy. Right? Typically how it works, of course, in WWE is they groom somebody to be that next one guy. We just look at, eras, Hogan era. Then you had the Austin era. Then you had the Cena era. Now we're in the Roman era. So like, who's that next guy that's going to take the WWE into, the next 10, 15 years? And you look at it and say, well, they're grooming Bron Breakker. It should be him. But every time I watch him in the ring, if take away his look, take away his look and how he looks, and just take him when you're watching the matches, what's impressive about him? I don't know if there is anything. And I know that probably sounds like a little rough, but I just look at like he's okay. He's okay. In the spot they have you in, we know it's going to be him and Melo at Stand and Deliver. I don't know if Melo's going to. I'm going to assume he's going to win it, like I think that's a great part of Melo's story. I think Melo is leaps and bounds farther along than Bron Breakker. And I just think that's an issue.
I believe Bron is just a victim of, I don't want to say complacency, because I don't think it's on his part. I just think that he's been in the main event status for just a little too long. I know you and I, Matt, had this conversation as far as maybe it's the talent that's down at NXT, why I don't feel like he's actually showing more in the ring. But you made a good point. Well, no, when Apollo come down and he, again, at the last PLE, it should have been like, oh, wow, okay, no, this is great. And it wasn't. So, because again, you wrestle up to your competition. I just think that he's just been that main event spot for too long, and it's now became stale. And to me, it's just stale. I don't know what he could do right now to make him better. That's why I think hopefully he does leave and go into maybe like the Andre the Giant over the top rope battle royal at Mania, just to get him out of NXT. He needs to go out of NXT. I still love him. I still think that he's going to be possibly that next face of the WWE. But you get somebody like Carmelo, man, is just so passionate, and he has that je ne sais quoi, that swag about him, that you feel and you have that attachment to him. I just don't think that we're attached to Braun. Yeah, I know you're Rick's son, but we don't have that engagement and that attachment to him as a character. I think that
besides
also adds,
barking, during his promos or during his match where the crowd barks at him.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, just get him out of there, bring him on up, and then repackage him. Or just do something different, or just bring him out of NXT, bring him up.
Yeah, very interesting. I didn't feel that strongly about the match either way. I didn't think it was a great match. I didn't think it was a bad match either. And I didn't think it was a bad night for him, to be quite honest with you. But at the same time, though, I think it's time for him to move up. I think his ring work will be fine. I think he'll get better as he works with higher caliber wrestlers. I just remember back in the day, like, you think about, because I've been a wrestling fan for a long time, and there was a lot of big stars, and their matches were just there. He has a presence. I think he can only get better the more talent he works with. As far as Melo, like, he should be ahead, because I think Melo has been wrestling much longer than Bryan. Because I think Bryan, he's a performance center baby. That's his first go, right? And so to be where I think he's just a couple years into the business. We're talking about, like, Jade and a lot of those people. They've been, I think he's been in the business just as long or less than she has, right? So I think you got to continue to give him time. Whereas Melo's been around for quite some time, and for me, I think Melo, he needs a little something extra. I think he's the one who needs a little something extra, and I think that Trick is providing that for him. I think Trick adds so much personality to that mix.
Man, they are so good together.
Like, like when Trick was praying on the chair,
so
like just his antics outside, like they mix with each other. But I think that I like to see Melo. I don't want to say it's from a promo perspective, but it's definitely he needs a little bit more of an edge. I think he's portraying something instead of actually being something. Because he has all the tools. No, more so Melo.
Okay.
Like, I think he's portraying something versus being something. I think Bryan, going back to him, like, I think he'll get better. I think he's still honestly figuring out who he is, because he's using a little bit of Rick. He's using a little bit of Scott. He's doing a great job emulating those two, but I didn't feel strongly either way about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I could just be in the minority. I mean, he's fundamentally strong. That's why I said it's nothing about his work per se. He's not dangerous. He's not a two-set move type guy. He's just, when I watch him, I'm like, man, besides his great look, he's athletic, but I'm just like, ooh, I don't know why I should care about him. And he hasn't really given me that yet. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. But I think it's time. I think he's done what he has done with that title belt, and it's kind of time to move on.
It's already beyond him. Yeah, he needs to go, because I think he still have that potential to be that face.
Okay. Anything else off of NXT before we move over to giving AEW some well-deserved flowers?
I'm good.
So it's been about 6 weeks now of great shows. And we kind of talk about AEW every week. We'll say great show, and then we'll kind of nitpick. And there's probably a couple things that I'll bring up on this show. I cannot wait to get Eshaun's reaction to the main event last night that I think absolutely worked the way they wanted it to by looking at some of the reaction on social media. But another fantastic show. And I thought last night was one of their best shows ever. It had everything that you would want from a wrestling show. The shows are just so much fun. You know, like if you don't sit back and just nitpick every little thing, and there's a lot we could nitpick about. Same thing with WWE. But if you just sit down and say, hey, I want to watch something to be entertained for 2 hours, I think it's really hard not to be entertained with a Dynamite show. And last night was just off the charts good, in my opinion. That tag team title match, I even tweeted out before the match when they went to that as a main event. I'm like, okay, if we get a big angle here or a title change, I think this is going to be one of the best shows, you know, in history. And I thought it was going to be a title change because why would you put that match in the main event? Or Billy Gunn was going to turn and something big came out of it. Billy is still scissoring, but the Ass Boys are now tag champs. So congrats to the Gun Club for winning the AEW tag team title. I thought it worked. I thought it was great. I'm going to throw it to you two. Did you like the finish, and why or why not?
So leading up, I think maybe I had this conversation with you, Matt. I don't know if I did with you, Eshaun. A couple weeks ago when they had that therapy session that they showed on TV, I almost had my fandom of the Scissor Me Boys more like tainted. At that point, it was like they were becoming
What's their
the
name?
bad guy. The Scissor Me Boy guys.
Who's that?
The Acclaimed.
The Scissor Me Boys.
The Acclaimed.
You really are trying to get this OnlyFans on and popping, aren't you?
Trying to. So look. So listen. So in that therapy, I'm like the fly on the wall in their therapy session, and it kind of switched. My fandom of the Acclaim was like, okay, well maybe I need to put my energy over